Hello gang, today is February the 10th and Warlord Games just dropped a new errata for both the full game as well as the Armies of Germany book. I'm not going to go into too much detail with the Armies of Germany book today, but more look at the general 3rd edition rulebook errata and the changes they've made to the core game. They've added quite a few here, they've removed some of the old ones, and I've picked out some of the biggest changes and the most impactful changes to try and highlight for you today. The first is a change to the measure the range and open fire section of the rules. Previously, a lot of players were using the wording of it to allow only certain groups of a squad to open fire, meaning you could selectively not fire certain models to negate a target's cover save, meaning that the models that are firing don't suffer the 50% of your targets covered by cover, so you can just fire without the target getting a cover save. They've changed it now to specify that it's weapons with limited ammunition, so it'll be Panzerfaust, flamethrowers, and that kind of thing, not rifles or small arms in general. One of the really big ones that they've done is they've made a change to spotters. The big change here is to stop people using around 3 or 4 heavy mortars, for example, having one spotter, snap twoing those, and having them all fire at the same target. Now a spotter can only spot for 1 unit in your army per turn. So if you want to have your 3 mortars hiding behind cover, you're going to need a spotter for each of them. They can't all share. It also then specifies at the end that if you were to swap spotters in between, say for example, your model was using a spotter on the left hand side of the board, that spotter died and he then started using a different spotter, you would then reset your zeroing in. I think this is to stop people having a spotter shot out and then players just continually zeroing in and trying to tone down some of the heavy batteries of mortars that people are taking in games at the moment. Talking of indirect fire though, there's also been changes to multi-rocket launchers. The main change to the multi-rocket launchers is that the minimum range has been significantly increased to 36 inches. On the plus side now, however, there's a little note on the end saying that this errata replaces a previously published one in which it specified that they couldn't use spotters. So I'm not entirely sure if that's the intention here, but they have removed the ruling in the errata saying that you can't use spotters with, say, a Nebelwerfer. I don't believe you can purchase a spotter for your Neb, but say if you have an artillery observer or a leftover spotter that you want to use from a mortar, say, you'd be able to do that. This is one I saw quite a bit of discussion about on Facebook when 3rd edition first came out, where people were trying to have their artillery crews in this weird star-like or giant circle around their artillery guns. As the wording said, they need to be within 1 inch of any part of the gun model. So people would say, well, this guy's 1 inch from the left wheel, this guy's 1 inch from the right wheel, and this guy's 1 inch from the end of the barrel. You can't do that anymore. They've now stipulated that they do need to stay in the standard formation for infantry, as well as all be within 1 inch of the gun model. They've also done something to stop people trying to have their artillery guns poking out from behind a corner and then having the entire crew hiding behind the corner, essentially being able to see but not being fired upon. So long as you can see the crew or the gun, you'll be able to draw line of sight to it. The crew will still, however, get the cover save if they've set up in that particular way, but it is still targetable. There's also been a slight update to British light anti-tank guns. They'll now be able to fire from a rotating platform, meaning they can spin 360, and you won't need to advance them to turn them left or right to make sure your arc of fire is pointing the way you need it to. It's a nice little buff, and it is also historically accurate. With all the armor we're seeing in games now, it's probably a nice little addition. A big bonus for the Soviets is they're now able to retake a lot of the lend-lease options that they were previously able to. Valentines, Stuarts, Lees, Matildas, Scout Cars, M17s, it's all in there. Warlord have continued to kick the Japanese forces when they're down, with what is honestly quite a reasonable rule. In a heavy weapons platoon, you're not going to be able to stack the ability to take multiple suicide bombers within a given slot, so you can't take 9 or however many people were trying to take to boost their dice count. You can see the breakdown in the wording here. So you can still take a good number of them, but you can't abuse the ruling. Units with fieldcraft assaulting through rough ground have been confirmed that the target will not gain the defensive positions advantage, which is nice. When firing HE at a single model, you're not going to be able to move that template around to try and intentionally splash units that are further away than you should be able to. If it's just a single model, it always has to be smack bang in the middle, right on top of it. They've also confirmed a little bit later that if you do manage to splash from one target onto the other, while the damage will carry over, you won't be able to apply pins to that second target. This one I'm quite glad they confirmed actually, because this is how I read the wording, but I wasn't quite sure myself. They've basically now confirmed that when playing long table edges, your table edge does actually move up the left and right of the board as well. or in sectors just on the left or the right. Meaning that if you're coming in from reserve or in first wave, you can come in already 12 inches up, so long as you're coming in from the side of the board. There are 3 points about the Armies of Germany errata that I would like to bring up. Actually, let's make it 4. The first, which I think most people have figured out now, is any units that have the Pathfinder rule is essentially fieldcraft. Medium artillery can still buy spotters for the standard 10 points. Nebelwerfers have not become heavy mortar, it's still a multi-rocket launcher, and I know a lot of you will be really glad to hear that the Panzer III has got the option to take its second coaxial machine gun back. It'll be available on the C, D, E, F, and interestingly, G. A bit of a quick one today, but this just dropped, and I know that a lot of people are interested to see what the changes are. I was hoping that they were going to do something with the fins and maybe adjust the costings on some of their units, which I think is justified, but maybe next time. If there's anything there that you think I've missed, feel free to bring up in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.